Honorable Meli, that should be you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the motion that the Early Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I want to note that this Early Education Bill is actually a very important bill for this House, for this nation. And Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to, in my submission, Madam Speaker, I've just looked at the bill in various parts. The bill seeks to provide a framework for the establishment of systems for the administration of early childhood education within the counties. As we speak currently, Madam Speaker, we haven't no legal framework on early childhood education. You'll realize that counties are running the early childhood education without any clear legal framework. And this is a very important document which is going to guide this and farm the early childhood education into the laws of this country. Paragraph 9 of Part 2 of the 4th schedule to the Constitution provides that pre-primary education is a function of the county government. County governments are therefore conferred with the mandate of ensuring the implementation of early childhood education within the counties. Though as the policy and the planning part remains at the national level, this bill seeks to address and to really put the law in place, objects and purposes of the bill, as well as the guiding principles that guide counties and other actors in the implementation of the bill. Madam Speaker, as you look at Part 2 of the bill, it provides for the rights of every child to free and compulsory early childhood education in public education centers. In order to realize that right, the bill assigns various duties to county governments, parents, and as well as teachers that will facilitate the promotion of the right to early childhood education. I think, as you all know, that education in this country, as per Basic Education Act, is free and compulsory. But on the early childhood education, it has actually structured it in ways where the parents have to play their role, the county government has played their role, the teachers have their role, so that this particular right is actually ensured for the child. Madam Speaker, the bill also obligates the county executive committee member to establish such infrastructure as may be necessary to ensure the access of children with disabilities. As we talk today, last week our committee visited Kibos in Kisumu, which is actually a visually impaired center school. If you look at that particular institution, it was established at the dawn of the independence, at the early period, in the early 60s. It is one of the institutions that we have in this country, I think only the 2 or 3. But during those early periods, provisions for the physically challenged were not there. But I want to say that as we went there, the school administration has actually come in and tried to improvise that so that the physically challenged, those who have issues of mobility and others can actually use the facilities quite well. And this is actually something that we have told all county executive CECs in charge of education to ensure that they really provide those services. In Part 3, the bill provides the establishment of registration and maintenance of early childhood education centers in the county government. The application for registration shall be submitted to County Education Board in prescribed form. In fact, in details, Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to really look at the sector in a radical way. That as we move forward, early childhood centers shall not be established in the current form, where churches or centers or even well-wishers can just bring students together and just ask for registration from the government. No, they shall be required, first of all, to put facilities in place. Ensure those facilities have actually been inspected. Ensure that those facilities meet the requirements of the health officer, the public health department, the public works, so that we stop the problem that we just saw the other day, where students and teachers are actually living in shanties or actually working in shanties in name of schools. So with this bill is actually put in place, it shall be mandatory that before any center is going to be registered and be known as a ECD center, it has to meet those particular requirements. The students will be the last. In the current form, Madam Speaker, and honorable members, you'll realize that even in our constituencies, we have pressure. As members of parliament, at times, you are told, we have students up to class 4 in Madwall classes. And the member of parliament is put pressure that kindly register this, because there is nothing we can do, because the students are already there. But in this particular instance, we are asking the county executive member to ensure that the structures and the infrastructure and all the required facilities are in place. Same thing, Madam Speaker, the bill also in part 3 provides for the suitability and change of premises for an education center as well as mobile schools, which shall be established based on requirements prescribed by the Cabinet Secretary. It has been known some early or ECD centers are mobile, but these cannot. You cannot change an ECD center or a mobile center in a form that is prescribed and shall be actually guided on the bill. On part 4, the bill provides for the management of early childhood education centers, which will be vested in the Board of Management. It provides for the establishment of boards of management for early childhood educational centers. And this is actually a managerial area where the bill seeks to establish all the BOMs in early childhood educational centers. In areas where they are existing, or what I'll call standalone, they shall have their own BOMs. But in areas where they exist with the mainstream school, they shall actually be integrated in it and become part of the school BOM. In part 4, the bill seeks or provides for the administration of early childhood education systems. The part provides for each county government shall provide for the overall governance and management of early childhood education centers. I think this is actually very important, especially the role of the CEC, the role of the early childhood education teachers, and the role of county government in managing it, because it is purely a county government function. The part also prohibits certain actions such as administration of exams for purposes of admission, holding back of pupils, expulsion from center, and changing of tuition fees in charging of tuition fees in public educational centers. A few minutes ago, one of our honorable members did say there are some schools charging illegal fees. And this is something that I think it has been talked about every other time in this house. You'll find that some schools charge admission fees, tuition fees, and all this. And this law, this bill seeks to make sure that those things are outlawed, they are illegal, they are prohibited. And I think the Minister of Education and the Minister needs to take this very seriously, and the County Executive CEC in charge of early childhood education, so that all schools, all early educational centers shall not charge that particular exam. And the bill is very clear, the law is very clear on that particular matter. In part 4 also it provides that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development shall be responsible for development of early childhood education curriculum to be applied in all counties. The section is very important so as to make ECD standard across the counties. I know there are certain peculiarities, especially on mother tongue, especially on cultures, and many other things. But the curricula of all the ECDs across the county shall actually be well developed by the KICD, but in conjunction with the county executive officer. Part 5, the bill provides for the accreditation of early education centers offering foreign curricula by the county education board. An education center shall submit an application in the accreditation. We are talking about foreign curriculums. And in this case, we have certain early education centers which offer a foreign curriculum. And in this sense, those which offer GCE or other type of curriculum has to be actually accredited or actually be approved by the county education boards. And most of those are actually very common, especially in the capital city, that is the city of Nairobi, where we have a number of educational institutions offering foreign curriculum. On the same note, Madam Speaker, the bill provides that the certificate of accreditation shall be valid for 5 years and renewable subject to the education center meeting the prescribed conditions. And in this case, we are talking about the Early Educational Center accreditation. Madam Speaker, it should also be noted that the bill provides for the revocation of certificate where an education center fails to comply with a standard of accreditation. The part mandates the County Education Board to establish and maintain a register of accredited education centers, and this register shall be open to the public for inspection. That is actually a matter for quality assurance. To quality assure the various centers across the country, that is very mandatory. So that each and every center has to meet particular well-established criteria for them to operate. Part 7 of the bill, Madam Speaker and members, provides for the quality assurance. It enables the County Early Childhood Quality Assurance Committee, which shall be in consultation with the County Education Standards Council, ensure the maintenance of standards of education and ensure the implementation of guidelines and policies formulated by the council. This is a very important thing, and I think it is actually going to ensure that all the county education ECD centers are actually done and they are actually run as required by law. Part 8, Madam Speaker, the bill also seeks or provides safety and protection of children in an educational center and accounted for. And the buildings and the structures that are put in place should not actually be in a way that can injure the child in that particular center. The part also requires the Cabinet Secretary to prescribe minimum standards for the health and safety of pupils for the satisfactory or enforcement for the education. We know the health of these children is actually is actually still fragile. A number of them are susceptible to cold, susceptible to communicable diseases, susceptible to so many things. So it is now that this bill wants to ask the early education centers to ensure that all those particular issues that are actually in those particular centers are of high standard. Even the toiletries, even where the children are staying and playing, are actually very important. And you know, this is a time when, this is a formative time of these children. So that is why every other time, the health and regulation standards are very important. So as we move along, so that to ensure the safety of learners, every ECD center has to meet those particular requirements prescribed in the bill. And I think this is an area where, if we have it right, all the way from ECD, we shall have it right all the way to colleges and even secondary schools. And even the issues of collapsed buildings, the issue of fires shall be a thing of the past. Madam Speaker, on part 9, the bill provides, under the same pattern, Madam Speaker, part 8, the bill also outlaws corporal punishment, emotional or psychological abuse on learners. A few weeks ago, I stood in this house to issue a statement as a result of a child who passed on, and it is alleged that she was actually abused by the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers, and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. On the same note, a contravention actually has been, a contravention of this will actually lead to a punishment and a fine not exceeding 500,000 for the teacher or anybody who will do that. On the bill also on part 9 provides for the transitional provisions. That this part 6 sets out a transition period of 1 year from the date of enactment of the act. These are actually consequential or transitional clauses, which actually ensures that this bill is actually in tandem with the law. Lastly, Madam Speaker and members, this part also gives a transition period of 4 years to the person previously employed as early childhood education teacher, within which time they shall be required to obtain the necessary qualification for employment as early childhood education teacher under the new act. This act is very explicit, especially on the standards of officers, and more specifically the teachers. that this teacher is required to comply and must be actually examined and must be registered by the Teacher Service Commission. Every county executive member, by the Act, is mandated to ensure that all the officers that are within them meet those particular requirements. This one is also to establish the standards so that you'll find that in some counties, if a teacher has no certificate in early childhood or a degree in early childhood, you don't go on the streets and pick anyone to be a teacher of your child. The bill seeks to standardize this and make sure that the teacher is registered, the teacher has the requisite documents, has the requisite skills, has the requisite understanding, so that the early childhood is actually done as per the law. Madam Speaker, also on Part 10, the bill provides for the miscellaneous provisions. There is miscellaneous provisions. This part gives powers to the Cabinet Secretary to make regulations in consultation with the Council of County Governors, the Council of Governors. Additionally, the Cabinet Secretary shall, in consultation with the Teacher Service Commission and the Council of Governors, prescribe minimum standards relating to schemes of service for early childhood teachers within 1 year of enactment of the Act. Honorable Speaker and members, we deliberated as a committee on the issue of employment of early childhood education teachers. This is a function of county government, but it shall be debated amongst you members that if it fits it, these teachers, they are paid invariably. Some county governments pay them 8,000. I want to thank the governor of Kisumu, who actually looks like he paid them about 22,000, almost the highest in the country. So if one county is paying them 8,000, others are paying them 10,000, they pay them as they deem fit. It is according to this bill, therefore, that we can actually look at this issue further. You can even propose amendment to it so that we can ensure that certain monies, if they have been taken to the county government, they can be brought back and these learners be employed by the Teacher Service Commission for standardization, for motivation, and for recognition. These are the people whom we bestow our learners to, our children to, at very tender age. How do you give your child to a demotivated person? A person who wakes up in the morning, he didn't take tea because the salary was not enough, who didn't actually have enough food. So it is incumbent upon us as members that we look into this and ask ourselves, what are we doing? It is open to for your discussion. In the first and the second schedule, the first schedule also provides for the criteria for determining the suitability of premises, and actually that is what the bill looks at, the criteria and what you do in second schedule. The schedule also proposes the conduct of the affairs of the Board of Management of Early Childhood Education Centers, and in this, it has actually come out very clearly on how the early childhood educational centers can be handled. Madam Speaker, the bill offers the functions of the county government and is therefore a bill concerning counties for purposes of the standing orders. I think this one, we are all aware it's a Senate bill. It's a bill for purposes of our discussion here, and we shall actually dispense with it and proceed with it to the next level. On public participation and stakeholders participation, the Early Childhood Education Bill 2018, Senate Bill of 2018 was published in the Kenya Gazette, number 115 of 4th September 2018, and passed by the Senate with amendments on 22nd May 2019. The bill was also read first time in the National Assembly on 11th of June, and thereafter submitted to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. We've actually looked at it and to comment on our recommendations, because most of the issues that our views were based on meetings that we did in public participation. We did meet the Ministry of Education, State Department for Early Childhood, Early Learning. We also had input from the Kenya Law Reform Commission. We also had the input of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And we also had the input or a memoranda from one Mr. Daniel Okoth. In all this enriched this bill and actually gave us a wider perspective on the early childhood education bill. And actually, I want to say that this is a very important bill, not only for the county government, but for the running of education in this country. It is a bill that this House actually needs to debate and even enrich it further through our debating modes. But lastly, I also want to say that the committee considered all the proposed amendments by the stakeholders and incorporated amendments that were deemed valuable and